date on. So if that sounds good to everybody, I'll just kind of get going. So I guess a little bit of background. I have a bachelor's degree in political science from a small college in Florida called Rollins College, and a master's in American government from Georgetown. But GW is great too. No rivalries here. So I was in a 12-month master's program, and I was doing an internship at the Office of Management and Budget as part of my master's program when the pandemic happened, and a lot of things obviously were up in the air. And OMB informed me that my internship would not be moving forward, basically that they couldn't prioritize unpaid interns while they were trying to figure out how to operate in an entirely new world. So I said, oh, that makes sense, I guess. And I got on the job market because I needed an internship to graduate. So initially I was looking for internship opportunities. I was searching around on usajobs.gov using the students and recent graduates sort of filtering tool, which is a great tool to familiarize yourself with if you haven't already and you're interested in government work. When I found a vacancy announcement for a grad recruit at CRS, and you know how vacancy announcements are on USA Jobs. It wasn't super specific, but it mentioned basically that they were looking for an analyst to cover the Office of Management and Budget. And I thought, great, I have been an intern there for the last 2 months, so maybe this will work out, even though at the time I wasn't really looking for something full-time, which the grad recruit position is a full-time position. You serve for 4 months in a full-time capacity, and then there's sort of a mutual review process at the end where your managers on the team that you're working for assess you and decide whether or not you're a good fit for CRS. You get the chance to think about the last 4 months of work and whether or not it was the right fit for you, because it is a really unique work environment, which I'll talk more about later. And then if it's a yes on both sides, they decide you're a good fit, you decide it's a good fit for you, they may offer you a permanent conditional position to either continue straight through if you've completed your degree during your grad recruit period like I did, or if you have like a semester or 2 left to finish up, they may make you an offer for when you graduate. So then you would, finish your degree and come back. So I was like, okay, that's even better than an internship. It's a paid job with the potential for being, permanent after I'm done with school. So I printed out the vacancy announcement and I took it to an academic advisor of mine at Georgetown and sort of talked through it with them, tried to brainstorm about how my experience up to that point may have aligned with the knowledge, skills, and abilities, which people often call KSAs. They're sort of like the core competencies of the job that you have to demonstrate experience or education that meets those in order to be considered for a job in the government. Sorry, Shawnetta just emailed me, Melissa, just so you know. She said, could you try to send me an invite, which I already did, so I'll try that again. Sorry, 1 second,
I'll go ahead and try to do that.
Okay, cool. Where was I? So I met with the professor to talk about, how to get my application in order. I hadn't applied to anything on USA Jobs before. That's kind of its own beast. I would recommend working with your career center or, a professor that you like and who may have expertise in that on how to do that. But my main advice for that would just be to really take your time answering the questions. They really do look at them. Copy and pasting the resume, I have not heard is enough. You really have to take your time and make sure that you're answering them really thoroughly. So I applied. I went through the interview process, which is a pretty standard civil service, competitive service, government interview. It was several rounds with a hiring panel. I think there were 3 or 4 people on the panel, back and forth, and then kind of a unique thing that CRS does is a meet and greet. Once you've progressed through a lot of the more like cut and dry interviews, you get scheduled to meet with the section that you're going to be working with should you accept the position. So CRS is organized into divisions by theme. I work in the government and finance division, which covers what it sounds like, government operations, finance. and I work in the executive branch operations section of the government and finance division. So again, that's what it sounds like, executive branch operations. There's a legislative and budget section in my division. There's a Congress and the judiciary section in my division. So just to give you an idea of how it's organized. So I did a meet and greet with the EX section where I got to ask questions of the other members of the section, which was really interesting because, like I said, CRS is sort of a unique environment in that analysts are given a lot of autonomy and expected to direct their own research, not in the grad recruit period, but that's sort of what you're working towards as a permanent analyst. So I got to ask them questions, got to hear from them, and it helped me feel more confident that it was the right choice for me. So that's kind of a fun thing. And after that, I got an offer and I accepted it. And I started working in July of 2020. I, like I said, was brought on to cover the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, from an institutional perspective, but also the executive budget process and federal civilian personnel. So for the first month or so, it really is drinking from a fire hose because there's just a lot to onboard with. You know, you're getting used to how to work with Congress as a client, what CRS's values mean in practice, you know, confidentiality, objectivity, authoritativeness, nonpartisanship, timeliness. When we do our work for Congress, those are the things that sort of guide us. You know, we provide objective, authoritative, nonpartisan research, and oftentimes on tight deadlines. So getting used to like what that looks like in practice was a lot, but CRS does a really good job of helping you onboard. They give you a mentor for sort of the work life stuff, people to ask about, you know, just the more like human parts of acclimating to a job. And then you also typically get a mentor who works in your portfolio in some cases, or in a portfolio that's adjacent to yours to help you figure out, you know, what your writing should be looking like, what research sources you should be using, things like that. And to start, you're not expected to do much on your own. So a CRS analyst work is kind of divided into two buckets. One bucket is consultative work. So any member of Congress's staff or committee staff can either put in a request through our website or can reach out to us directly, which happens more the longer you're there, as you sort of build reputation and client relationships. But so anybody can put in a request. You know, they'll put in the request information section a couple of keywords that'll tip off a team at CRS that sort of sorts these, that it belongs with you. So if I get a request and it says, you know, executive budget process in it, they know to send it to me. I get the request, and if it's a request for an in-person briefing, I prepare and I walk over to their office and I give them an in-person briefing. Sometimes it's a request for something more straightforward, like they want a specific they're looking for specific data. Maybe I'll send them an email response. Sometimes they request that we write memos, which can, you know, be a longer timeline project. But those are all the types of things that we consider consultative work. The other bucket is anticipatory work or written work. We publish reports. They used to not be public. Now they are. The website for the public reports is crsreports.gov. But we also have like a internal to the Hill Congress facing website. That's just crs.gov. You can't open it unless you're on I think a Hill VPN or something. But we write reports that get published there. We write reports in order to do more in-depth research on things that are of interest to Congress, and oftentimes to sort of get out ahead of all of the request work we might get on an issue. So, you know, I help cover government shutdowns. So as you can imagine, we were busy with that in the fall. So I put together a couple of written products. I put like an FAQ together on, you know, what happens when the government shuts down, just because you know you're going to be getting a lot of questions about that. So it's easier to have something written already. So consultative work and written work. In the very beginning, you aren't fielding requests on your own. You're typically shadowing a more senior, more tenured analyst to get a feel for what a briefing looks like, what the relationship with the client is like, and to kind of just start getting your feet wet. And then, slowly over time, other analysts will sort of carve out a role for you. Okay, I'm going to talk about X, Y, and Z. Can you cover this small piece of it? And you'll go over it with them in advance, so you're prepared. But your speaking role gets bigger and bigger until eventually, I think maybe a month or two in, I started fielding requests myself, which at first I was nervous about. I did a ton of prep, like probably too much prep. But you get used to it, and then it's not a big deal anymore. Well, sometimes it's a big deal. I did my first member briefing this year, which is where you actually speak to a member of Congress and not their staff. That was a big deal for me. I was nervous. But you get used to it, like I said. And similarly, on the written side of things, your first few products are sort of assigned to you by your section research manager. That's my direct supervisor. They manage the entire section, and it's a pretty collaborative relationship that you have with your SRM as an analyst, especially as you gain more experience. But in the beginning, they plan a couple of early products for you to write based on just, gaps in coverage or things that need to be updated, things like that. And you do a lot of back and forth with them in terms of like review and scoping a product. And then later, when you become a full-fledged analyst, it's really your responsibility to pitch projects, which is really interesting because you, in your day-to-day work, get a sense of what your clients are interested in. In your day-to-day research, you get a sense of like gaps in your interest area. Maybe you can't find anything good that's been written on a particular topic, and you think, okay, I should probably pitch a report on that. So, you pitch a report idea to your manager and they give you feedback, and then, typically it's a good idea and you get to write it, which is cool because it's very self-directed and you have a lot of autonomy as an analyst. So like I said, as a grad recruit, you're slowly given more autonomy and responsibility over time. And at the end of the 4-month period, if you decide you want to stay on and they decide they want to keep you on, you convert to I think it's called permanent conditional, where you're basically on like a 1-year probation, which is pretty standard in government employment, as far as I know. I was burning the candle at both ends and was doing my grad recruit period while I was finishing up my master's, and I kind of graduated as it ended. So I stayed straight on, like I didn't have to return to school for another semester or anything. So I converted, over a weekend, and started, like I said, pitching my own product ideas. I was lead author on more projects rather than, co-author or contributing author. I was coordinating more products. I started teaching my own seminars. That's another thing that CRS analysts often do. We sort of teach, mine I call a crash course because it's an overview of the executive budget process from A to Z. And I've been doing that on a twice-a-year basis. It's pretty fun. It's kind of like giving a lecture. I've also been doing, more in-person briefings, more coordinating. Like I said, I did a member briefing for the first time, which was exciting. I also had an opportunity to go to the American Political Science Association annual meeting in LA on behalf of CRS to work a recruitment table. And I've started mentoring newer analysts. So it's been a really great experience. Like I said, I started in July 2020, so I've been on for about 3.5 years. And I think that it's really a great way to launch your professional career. Like I said, I came straight through school, so this has been like my first post-master's degree job, and I've stayed for 3 years, which feels like a long time to me, and I plan to stay. So yeah, I think some helpful skills that I came in with were strong writing. Like I said, there's a lot of mentorship and guidance given for early written products, but CRS expects a really high caliber of writing. Citations are very diligent at CRS. We have a style guide that we work from, but it still requires a lot of attention to detail and commitment to the style guide to get a product across the finish line. So the more practice writing you can do, the better. And then another big thing is like curiosity and a willingness to learn, because about half of our work, give or take, is directed by clients and not by ourselves. You know, you may get a question about one topic on a Monday and then a question about a completely different topic on a Tuesday. And it all falls within your portfolio, but our portfolios can be pretty broad. So, I cover federal personnel and executive budget process. On a Monday, I might get a question about how the annual pay adjustment process for federal employees paid on the general schedule works. So I have to prepare to brief a client on that. And then a few days later, I might get a question about how often in the last 20 years has the president's budget been delivered on time? For budget nerds, today is the budget submission deadline in the United States Code for the president's budget submission to Congress, first Monday in February. So, we're doing lots of different things all the time, and you're shifting gears and pivoting a lot. So there needs to be, I think a person who does well at CRS and who likes working at CRS is down to roll with the punches and is curious about the questions they're being asked. Because our clients really rely on us to be able to conduct in-depth research and condense it and distill it into, half an hour, an hour-long briefing. So sort of keeping in tension, like the ability to dive deep in research and get really curious about a topic and then figure out, okay, what does the client actually need to know? We're not writing dissertations, but we're sometimes doing what feels like that level of research for a client who only has half an hour and really wants the main point. So yeah, that curiosity and sort of willingness to roll with what Congress is interested in, which, as you know, changes a lot day to day, week to week. That's a big thing. I think some successful habits of a grad recruit are someone who asks a lot of questions, especially in the early, month or two where you're shadowing senior analysts. Sometimes you'll be shadowing people on a briefing that has nothing to do with the issue area that you cover. Like I shadowed someone quite a few times who covers information policy, like FOIA and government records and things like that. And, maybe substantively that has nothing to do with what I will be writing on at any point in my life, but asking questions about like, why did you frame the conversation that way? Or, what sort of research did you do to prepare for this? What will you do to follow up? Things like that. You can learn so much from people who work in your section, even if they cover different things. Is this program, sorry, I just noticed the chat. Is this program appropriate for persons who are already employed at other federal agencies? If you mean like, is it appropriate as sort of like a next step in your career? I think absolutely. CRS is a place where they really value analysts developing expertise over time. So, I was hired as a GS 11 on the general schedule, if you're familiar with that. But analyst positions have promotional potential up to 15 without taking on any supervisory responsibilities. So you can be promoted all the way up the general schedule without a change in job title or without a change in responsibility. And what you're being promoted based off of is increased expertise. So if you're coming to this with a background that, you've already developed some expertise or where you want a lot of growth potential, I think it's a great stepping stone to sit on for a while. A lot of people at CRS, a lot of my colleagues are in their, 10th, 20th, 30th. It's not unusual to have a colleague that's been there 50 years, which is pretty amazing. Are there opportunities for senior analysts? Can you maybe elaborate on what you mean? Sorry. Government's jargony.
And I'll be monitoring the chat so we can come back once Ursula's had a chance to kind of flesh that out a little bit. And I think we have Shanetta here as well as caller. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Great.
So yes, CRS recruits people sort of at many points in their career. The grad recruit program specifically is targeting, recent graduates. So I came in with a bachelor's and a master's. Definitely did not have 10 years of experience. But a lot of my colleagues onboarded at CRS with a PhD or, with a postdoc. So I don't know that the grad recruit program is necessarily what you'd be looking for. But keeping an eye on the website where they post career job vacancies is a good idea. How much time off do you receive? I receive standard government competitive civil service leave. So I think for the first 3 years, Shawnetta, correct me if I'm wrong, I think for the first 3 years, you accrue 4 hours of leave every pay period, and a pay period is 2 weeks. I think once you hit 3 years, you accrue 6 hours per pay period. And then there's some point, maybe 10 years or something, where it switches to 8. Sorry, that's not the most confident answer.
Yes, I'm sorry. This is Shawnetta working. I'm a human capital management specialist and having technology problems, so that's why I'm calling in. But you're right, Taylor, that's correct. So 4 hours of annual leave and also 4 hours of sick leave every 2 weeks when you're in pay status. And then after 15 years, it's 8 hours of personal leave and again, 4 hours of sick leave. And that's outside of any federal holidays. We have 11 each year. And any other reason that we may not be able to meet on Capitol Hill, and you get excused absence or paid leave for that.
There's a lot of other cool workplace flexibilities. Obviously, Shawnetta is a better person to talk about those, but just some things that I enjoy. We do have telework. I telework twice a week. I'm at home today, which is why I have this virtual background. We also have flex schedules. So like you don't have to work the same 8 consecutive hours every day. This morning I logged on at 9:30. I'll work till 6. Tomorrow I could log on at 8, work till 4:30. My colleagues who have kids, they'll take an hour off in the middle of the afternoon to pick their kids up from school and then log back on. So there's lots of really nice things like that to take advantage of that make working at CRS really nice. Do you know of anyone with the... Oh yeah, so CRS recruits grad recruits across all of its research divisions. So I happen to work in government and finance, but we have resource sciences. You're really going to test my memory here. Resources, sciences, and industry. We have domestic social policy, who I think would cover healthcare. One of my managers actually used to be an analyst who covered Affordable Care Act. What else? We have foreign affairs, defense, and trade. The American Law Division, which is all attorneys. KSA's knowledge services. KSG, knowledge services. I don't know what these acronyms all stand for, but yes, we cover everything that Congress is interested in. So if you have an interest area that's very specific, we probably either have someone who covers that already or are looking for someone to cover it. Because our research is as broad as Congress's, legislative and oversight activities are broad. One of my colleagues covers sports as part of their portfolio. It's not their entire portfolio because I don't know if that would keep us busy enough, but someone covers sports. Pretty much everything under the sun. So again, just like keeping an eye on, I think Shawnetta is going to talk about current vacancies and about how to keep an eye on upcoming vacancies more later, but definitely opportunities beyond government and finance if that's not what you're interested in, though we could be coworkers if it is. I guess I pretty much run through everything I wanted to. I'm happy to take more questions or hand it over to Shawnetta, or we can go back and forth, however works for you guys.
Why don't we hand it over to you, and I'll also keep an eye on the chat.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, apologies for the delayed arrival. So currently we do have 6 positions that we're hiring for. And also I may duplicate information that was already shared, but I just want to make sure that it's covered. That I may have missed it. So currently we do have 6 positions available at this time. Our application period is now until mid-February. It takes generally about 30 days for staff on our side to review applications and to match people possibly up to specific positions. But we also open it up when you submit an application to other positions we may have available down the line. So if you're not accepted in the program now, someone from our office may reach out to you because of your experience and background to let you know of opportunities outside of the grad recruit program. Right now we have the 6 positions, 3 in our domestic social policy, in regards of crime, housing, and social policy, and then we have 3 in our resources, science, and industry division, and they're on analyst in the areas of agriculture, industry, and telecommunications. So right now, like I said, the period of hiring is open. You're required to submit an application. Our federal government applications are submitted through federal government application website, which is USA Jobs. You have to set up an account with USA Jobs to apply for through this position and any federal government position that the USA Jobs manages, which of course any position in CRS or the Library of Congress. You can also build a resume through there. Library of Congress, CRS only accepts federal style resumes, and those resumes look a little different from regular resumes where they may include a photo or something like that. So our resumes are pretty much focused on duties and accomplishments and experience, training. That's usually what's highlighted. So there is a sample of what a federal style resume looks like, or you can also do resume builder through USA Jobs. And so they'll ask you specific fields to complete, and that the application will build a resume for you. So you can use both or one of those options when you submit your application. So the application consists of 3 parts. One is the resume, which we just talked about. The other is applicant questionnaire, and the last is transcript. So again, discussing all of the details of the resume, you want to ensure that your resume matches information that you provide in your applicant questionnaire. The applicant questionnaire is just a few questions. It asks pretty much, the first question is, is everything that you're going to share with us accurate to the best of your knowledge? And then there's a part where it asks, how did you hear about, our positions? Also, you have an opportunity to share your experience through a statement of interest that usually has about 3 different parts, but it depends on the position you're applying for. One is how your degree or research match the position that you're applying for. Also, is your education basically appropriate for the different KSAs or knowledge, skills, and abilities that are necessary for the job? And that will be spelled out in the application. And then lastly, how do you think, how does your career goals align with the position that you're applying for? So for those 3 questions, it may be more or less depending on the specific position, but those questions in the applicant questionnaire, that piece is no more than 8,000 characters, so you don't have to spend too much in as far as writing on that piece, but just enough that, again, your background aligns with the position that you're applying for. That being said, again, we may look at your resume and say, you may be a better fit for this position. And so we may reach out to you and see if you have interest in that area, if you're not selected for the position that you've applied for. And then also as part of the applicant questionnaire is a request for 2 faculty recommendations, not long information that we require. We need the contact information for the references. And so that's sort of the application process. So again, that has to be completed by the close of the business day of the application. And again, I think for most of the positions, I think it's mid-February. I want to say like February 16th, something like that. And then the last piece of the application is your transcripts, official, unofficial, either accepted. But we need those three things: the resume, the applicant questionnaire, which is the longer part through USA Jobs, and then a copy of your transcripts. And so all of those have to be submitted by the close date of the position. Did anyone have any? I don't see the questions, but are there any questions for me about anything I just shared?
So feel free to, you can, oh, here's one. Sometimes there's a field to upload a cover letter. Is a cover letter recommended if there's an optional field for it?
Yes, you can absolutely include a cover letter, but it's not required for application process.
Great, thank you. So you are welcome to type questions for either Taylor or Shawnetta in the chat box, but you can also unmute yourself and ask them if you'd wish to do that. Either way works. If it's in the chat box, I will read it out loud so that Shawnetta can hear it. Otherwise, okay, so we've got one, I think, from Rebecca.
Yes. I have a question. Thank you for this. Is it?
Oh, we lost you there. Can you try again?
Did you guys hear me? Oh. Is it beneficial to have a recommendation letter?
Recommendation letter.
Can you hear me? I'll just text.
Is it beneficial to have a recommendation letter is the question.
It's not necessary. However, you can attach it to your application.
Good afternoon. I'd like to ask if we have more than one semester left in our graduate program, should we wait to apply?
Shawnetta, is there a requirement that is there a time limit, I guess, on how long the amount of time can be between completing the grad recruit program and accepting a full-time position if one's offered? Like I know that like Dom, for example, like, you know how if you're not done with your degree program and you need to go back and, you know, do another semester or another year, but CRS offers you a permanent conditional position at the completion of your degree, like, does it matter if it's like one semester or 2 semesters? I don't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Melissa, could you email me that question and I'll get an answer for you?
I mean, I would say just from the perspective of working as an analyst, I don't know if it's an issue area that's already well covered and there's kind of looking to add someone to that portfolio, like executive budget process is covered by 3 people. I'm one of 3. You know, maybe they would feel more flexible about like, okay, we don't necessarily need somebody to start right away. So 6 months or a year might be enough time, but I mean, I would say it's worth applying. Because I also don't think there's any sort of rule about like, if you do the grad recruit program, you can't do it again, or you can't apply through the regular hiring track later. It's really a great experience. And I know people at CRS who like were an intern and then, you know, years later came back and worked as an analyst. And that experience as an intern or as a grad recruit made a difference in them getting a job later. So I guess Shawnetta will follow up about the specifics, but I think it's still worth applying personally. And I think it's worth going through the interview process because if you're interested in government work, they're all fairly similar and it's always good to practice with answering KSAs. I cover federal hiring, so maybe I'm a little biased, but USA Jobs is an interesting platform to get used to. Using the resume builder is you know, there's a learning curve. So I'd say go for it.
And thank you. Yeah, I would add, I would agree with that 100% because as I shared, once you submit your resume with us, we will review it, and wherever we see a need, we may reach out to you personally to fill it. So if you don't qualify for the position, or we've already filled all of the positions through the grad recruit program, if we have your resume on file, we can always reach out to any opportunity for you.
Thank you. We have another question. Do the available positions or available, I assume, policy areas change from year to year?
Yes.
The portfolio you get hired to cover changes from year to year. Maybe I won't have to talk about shutdowns as much this year as I did last year. So, if you have like particular research interests and you are not sure how your portfolio is going to shake out in practice, like neither am I. What Congress is interested in changes all the time. Right now, I write on federal personnel and executive budget process, but sub issues within that are always fluctuating in terms of relevancy. We've been doing a lot of work recently on AI. I don't know if they're going to hire an AI analyst or something soon or what, but we've been getting a lot of like interdisciplinary questions about AI. And when I first started, I never had to touch anything like that. And now it's becoming more and more of a thing. So I would imagine that as Congress interests change, as issues wax and wane, there's really no predicting what we'll be covering. My portfolio is also pretty tied to, in some ways, to the calendar year. The executive budget process happens on an annual cycle. And though the deadlines for things are more pliable than one might think, I can kind of with some reasonable confidence predict that in February, I'll be talking about budget submission. In the summer, I'll be talking about mid-session review and pass back and things like that. But like I said, it's a dynamic, unpredictable environment because Congress is dynamic and unpredictable. So issue areas are always changing.
Absolutely. And part of the positions that you're hired into, one of the major duties is to work collaboratively with others of different disciplines. So you're going to learn a wide scope, something you may not have expected. So just to get certain products or deliver presentations or whatever, if Taylor had mentioned that before, you definitely were working with colleagues outside of the scope of your work. And so to get a product or products together, so definitely it changes. So flexibility is definitely a key to being successful in our analyst positions.
That happens to me a lot in my budget portfolio. Obviously, I cover budget from a process perspective, but everything that we think of as government is funded, and those discrete issue areas are covered by other analysts. So I might get a question about a funding mechanism for the Department of Energy or something, or something really specific. And then I have to call the analyst who covers that actual agency or that actual program, and we have to kind of tag team. I think I probably do more reaching out to other people across the service, like in my team, than others, since we are the process half of the puzzle. But yeah, like last week I learned a lot about logging policy from another analyst. I had never thought about that before, and I don't know if I will again, but it was interesting.
Terrific. We are just about at time. Any other questions?
Yes, one last question.
Great.
Can I please have the name of the wonderful lady on the phone? Her name or her email address, if that's possible. Thank you.
Shawnetta, that's to you.
Oh, yes. Shawnetta Workman.
I'll type that in here.
Thank you.
And you can reach me by email at sworkman@crs.loc.gov.
Okay, I think I got that right. Taylor, you can tell me if I didn't get it right.
Looks fair to me.
Okay.
Terrific. Well, I want to thank both Shawnetta and Taylor. Shawnetta, especially for your patience as we figure out how to get you in here. And Taylor for kicking us off. I actually really enjoyed getting Taylor first and having us get all excited, and then Shawnetta kind of coming in and telling us, great, this is how you can do this. So thank you to both of you so much. And thank you to all of you who joined us today. It's great to see so many people so engaged and interested, and sometimes there are no questions. So this is a great group. We had lots of questions. So thanks to everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.